Guess I still gotta break in this cotton. What's up, vapors? When it comes to devices powered by Evolve's DNA 200, one of the great things about them is that they all pretty much work the same way. If you're new to DNA 200 devices and want to know how to navigate through the menu system, then this video is for you. Other than the way the devices look, the battery configuration being used, and the arrangement of the buttons and the screen, DNA 200 devices are for the most part pretty much identical across all models, and thus navigating through the menu is the same as well. Fortunately, the interface is really streamlined and easy to use, so grab your mod and let's get a little more familiar with our device, shall we? The fire button is going to be the solitary button that typically sits closer to the top of your device, while the plus and minus, or as I'll refer to them in this video, the up and down selector buttons, will be next to each other a little further down. On most devices, these buttons will flank the OLED screen, but on some devices, such as the VaporShark DNA 200, they'll have the screen installed somewhere else. Also, while most devices also use two separate buttons for the selector, some devices such as the Boxer mod will use a rocker type of button. Either way, the functionality remains the same. If your device doesn't come with a built-in battery, go ahead and install your batteries now. It should power right up. Unlike many other regulated devices, DNA 200s don't turn on or off. Instead, they go into a low power sleep state. Not only does this conserve battery power, but it also ensures that your device is ready to go whenever you are. Some devices are shipped locked, so go ahead and unlock it now by quickly pressing the fire button 5 times. The same goes for locking the device as well. Out of the box, your device is most likely set up with the default NI200 temperature control settings and may or may not have the battery configuration set up properly, so you might want to first configure it in eScribe before going any further. Check out my eScribe quick start video up here to learn how to quickly set up your device. If you aren't going to be vaping in temperature control mode right away, just turn off temperature for profile 1 within eScribe. Then skip to the bits about configuring your mod for the battery that's in it. When you're done, come back to this video to learn the rest. Now that you have your device properly set up in eScribe, the rest is pretty easy. If you haven't already, attach your atomizer to your device and tap the fire button to quickly get a resistance reading. If you're in a temperature control profile, you may get a prompt asking if the atomizer is different from the last time it detected one. Press the up button if it is, otherwise press down for no. You should note that the resistance detected may be different from a previous reading if it's an atomizer you recently vaped on just prior to attaching it to your mod. Power mode is just another way of saying variable wattage. On screen, you will see your atomizer's current resistance reading in the upper left. Below that is the calculated voltage being pumped into the atomizer when it's being used. The temperature reading isn't used in power mode, so it will be nulled out. Over on the right is the current wattage setting. Using the up or down selector buttons will cycle through the wattage range from as low as 1 watt to as high as 200 watts. Please note that if you are using a dual 18650 device, you will be limited to only 133 watts of power, which is still way more than enough power for most people. Holding down either one of the selector buttons for several seconds will enable more rapid scrolling through the wattage values. While the numbers don't round robin, the values do change in 1 watt increments when scrolling above 30 watts. Anywhere below 30 watts, however, will scroll in 0.1 watt increments. To avoid accidentally changing your settings, press and hold both selector buttons for several seconds until you see the power locked message appear. Repeat this process to unlock the power settings and make changes. In temperature control mode, things are a little more involved, but once you've done it a couple times, it becomes second nature. The screen layout is pretty much identical to that of power mode. You still see your atomizer resistance and voltage, but now your target temperature is also indicated on screen. This is the temperature limit you set in eScribe earlier. While vaping, this value will change dynamically to indicate the calculated coil temperature of your atomizer based on your configuration in eScribe and the current settings on the device, but more on that in just a bit. On the right is your wattage setting, and the selector buttons go through the wattage values the same way they do in power mode. However, in temperature control mode, this setting is more of a target value. While I won't go into the intricacies of temperature control vaping here since that's a topic for another video, I will briefly explain how these two values relate to one another in a DNA 200 device. In a nutshell, the temperature limit basically tells the device how hot you're willing to let the coil get before the device can actually start doing any throttling of the power. The wattage setting is your target power level, or the performance point at which you wish to vape at. So as long as the coil doesn't exceed the temperature limit set while vaping, the device will continue to perform at your target power level. However, once the temperature threshold is crossed, the device will begin throttling back the power to maintain the temperature at the limit set. Of course, this can only be done properly if the device is configured properly in eScribe beforehand for the type of coil being used in your atomizer. If you find that you need to change your temperature limit on the fly, you can do so directly on the device rather than hooking it back up to eScribe. First, lock the device by quickly pressing the fire button 5 times. Then press and hold both selector buttons until the temperature limit appears on the right where the wattage setting normally is. Pressing the selector button will go through the temperature settings in 10-degree increments in Fahrenheit and 5-degree increments in Celsius with a range of 200 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit and 100 to 300 degrees Celsius. While it's easier to set the temperature scale in eScribe, in other words switching between Fahrenheit and Celsius, you can switch between the two directly on your device simply by scrolling down past the minimum temperature in either scale. Note that going between temperature scales will put you at 450 degrees when switching to Fahrenheit or 230 degrees when switching to Celsius. If you wish to temporarily turn off temperature control, simply scroll past the maximum temperature limit until the word off appears. At this point, the device will now work in power mode. To return to temperature control mode, simply repeat the process to enter the temperature adjustment screen and set your temperature limit once again. While this can be done in power mode to switch to temperature control mode, I don't recommend it unless the current profile is already configured for the type of coil in your atomizer, which it typically won't be. In most cases, you're better off creating a separate profile for temperature control and power mode vaping. In my case, for example, I use profiles 1 through 7 for temperature control for different wire types and leave profile 8 strictly for power mode. Yep, one of the great features of the DNA 200 is the ability to have multiple vaping profiles stored on your device. To switch profiles, just press and hold both selector buttons to lock the power setting. Once locked, press either selector button 2 times to open the profile selection menu. Just press up or down until you get to the desired profile, then press the fire button to load that particular profile. While this can seem like overkill to some people, it is actually quite convenient to have predefined vape settings all on one device, whether you're switching between tanks and drippers or just have different temperature control preferences from one device to another. At the very least, you'll want to use a separate profile for each different wire type since they all have different properties for temperature control. Even though you can sort of configure a profile directly on the device, it's not recommended, and when it comes to temperature control, doing it this way doesn't allow you to change certain things you may need to, particularly the TFR curve and preheat settings. Instead, go into eScribe and make the changes there, then download them into your device. And that about covers it for this guide on the DNA 200 menu system. If it sucked, throw me that thumbs down and let me know why in the comments so I can make future ones better. Otherwise, give it a like and share it with people who still might not know how to use their DNA 200 device, or for somebody who's planning to get one pretty soon. Also, be sure to subscribe for more how-to guides like this one, as well as product reviews and who knows what else. I'm MC Vapes. As always, thank you for watching. Keep kicking butts one vape at a time.